Dear participants, welcome to International Student Science Congress Session 2. There's going to be 5 presentations. No, 6 presentations in the session. And the first one will be made by Fatiha İmane Mahcar, Revolution of Kasar El Hayta in Laghat, Algeria, I guess. And the second one will be by Hande Gündel, the contribution of Riparian zone on urban ecosystems through climate change, urban adaptation process. The third one will be by Necla Fellahi, globalization process in architecture. The fourth one is going to be made by Ahenk Karca Demirkol, biyofilik tasarım kriterleri bağlamında ofis tasarımı. The fifth one is going to be presented by Hasan Abdulrahman, the cost implication of some selected feeder bus routes in İzmir, Turkey. And the last one is going to be presented by Gökçe Gönüllü Sütçüoğlu, first stage in climate adapted urban planning, mapping local climate zones of urban areas. And each presentation is going to be made during 15 minutes, and it also includes the answer and question part. So I demand you to be careful about using your time. And we can start with the first one. Is the presenter here? Is Fatiha İmane Mahcar here?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, welcome.
Hello.
You can start.
So, can you see my presentation?
Yes, we see.
Merhaba, hello everyone. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Fatiha İmane Mahtar. I am PhD student in University of Bursa, Uludağ, Department of Architecture, specialty of architecture. Today I will present my research about the revolution of Kasar El Hayta in Laghat, Algeria. So, about the content, we have in the first introduction, after we have the objectives of the study, after we have the materials and the methodology, we talk about the method used in this research, and after we have the results and discussion, what is the results that founded after this use of this method, and in the end we have a conclusion. So about the introduction we have in the first, what's mean the word Ksar. The term Ksar means in North Africa a fortified village characterized by a typical form of concentrated houses built in traditional materials. So after this study addresses the theme revolution of heritage, particularly our case study Kasar El Hayta, which has experienced a negligence and depopulation due to several factors. So that's why we do this research. So the Kasar El Hayta is among the most famous Ksur. The Ksur is the plural of Ksar, located in the south of Algeria and exactly in the region of Laghat. So this Ksar is built with simple materials and techniques of construction. The construction materials used are local materials like stones and lime. This materials is found in the environment of the Ksar. About the objectives, in the first, the objective of this study is to identify the major causes of degradation of Kasar El Hayta. After we have to preserve Kasar El Hayta through specific operations, which is the more important, and to improve the tourist attractiveness of Kasar El Hayta in order to promote heritage and to convert it back into sustainable Saharan tourism, since this both in economic level and in to promote and protect heritage and our case study Kasar El Hayta. So about the materials and the methodology, in the first we'll present our case study. our case study. The town of Laguad is located at 400 kilometers from Algiers, the capital. Here we have the country of Algeria, and here we have the capital Algiers, and our case study is located here in Laguad. So the town of Laguad is shared its limits with two towns of highlands. We have Jerfa and Tiaret, and two other from the south, which are El Bayad and Gardaya. The Qasar Al Hawaita is located in the northeast of Al Hawaita city, which is located from 40 kilometers from the city of Laguad. Here we have the city of Laguad, and here we have the city of Al Hawaita, which is located this Qasar. So the method used in this study is morphological analysis. What is mean the morphological analysis is defined as a tool for understanding traditional fabrics in a clear way and for understanding the complexity of the morphological relationships in old neighborhoods. So we do this method for understanding the complexity that's found in the Qasar of Al Hawaita about two modes, which are the mode of occupation and the mode of distribution. About the mode of distribution is about the parcel and street system, and about the mode of occupation, which is the built and open space. We have two steps. For the decomposition of fabric into four systems, we have parcel, street, built, and open space system. And about their composition, we have the ratio between components, the ratio between systems, and in the end, we have combination. In the end of this method, we have a conclusion. It will be like a database from future intervention in the fabric, and also it will be like a recommendation in the Qasar. So about the results and discussion. After the application of the morphological analysis in Qasar Al Hawaita, why we choose this Qasar? Because it's characterized by its seniority, allows us to take it as a conceptual landmark of traditional architecture. For the first level of the decomposition for parcel system, we can say the typology of parcel system is found in a combination between deformed rectangular parcel and fan-shaped rectangular parcel. And the articulation between us is due with a juxtaposition from different parcels, large and small parcels. For the street system, we have the encounter is orthogonal, and for the build system, we have a planar build, and with the type of no-remorphed planar build, and the type of volumes building with a central cordia. For the open space, we have the build elements are continuous, and the open space are discontinuous. For the second real composition, we have a topological ratio between systems. The parcels are positioned in relationship to each of the streets that form the street system. That we conclude that the parcels are make the form of the streets. And for the ratio between the four systems, we have talked about the nature of space. We have two nature of space. We have public and private. For the public, which is situated outside the houses, and for the private, which is situated inside the houses. For the ratio between systems, we have two combination between the variety of distribution system, which are parcel and street system, and the variety of occupants system, which is the built and open space. So after the study of the morphological analysis, we can say about the Qasar Al Hawaita. This is introverted architecture with the cordia in the house as basic unit. In the second, we have hierarchical street system from public to private street.
Is there a problem?
I think so.
Yeah, I think her connection is that. Alif, do you know her?
Yeah. Actually, I don't know her personally, but I can text her to tell her that it's not working over here.
Okay. Dear participants, we are sorry for this technical problem. We can continue with the second presentation. This is going to be presented by Hande Gündel, the contribution of Riparian zone on urban ecosystems through climate change, urban adaptation process. You have 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I will share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's fine.
It's okay. That's okay. I'm starting. Hello, I'm Hande. Today I'm talking about my research, which name is the contribution of Riparian zone on urban ecosystems through climate change, urban adaptation process. The content of my study is the concept of riparian, the value of riparian areas, riparian zone and climate change, sample urban planning studies on riparian systems, and conclusion. Riparian comes from the word riparius. Riparian consists of the Latin ripa, shore, and bank, and it is important for ecological systems, ecosystem services, and natural habitat. And that's okay. And riparian vegetation performance supports opportunities for ecological functions such as the provision of habitats and food many species, regulation of shade and water temperature, control of nutrient and sediment input into streams, provision of corridors for the movement of biota, and stabilization of river banks. And generally, riparian classification systems stay focused on a few selected attributes of riparian areas, such as hydroxolic or hydrophilic land association. Riparian vegetation stabilizes stream bank and limit erosion and transport of sediment in the water body. And riparian areas support crucial habitat for many species of mammals, birds, reptiles, and fish and insects, of course. The relationship of riparian zone and climate change, both the biological and physical composition can be affected by excessive water and insufficient flows due to climate change. Because of climate change, carbon dioxide concentrations increase in the atmosphere, and changes in air temperature affect water temperature, and also air temperature influences the timing of key hydrological events and the amount of precipitation falling as rain and snow. Climate is a crucial driver for ecosystem processes, and also freshwater ecosystems as thermal and hydrological regimes are connected to climate, and therefore heat exchange and atmospheric energy fluxes directly affect river water temperature, and also it is one of the most significant factors in the chemo-physical environment of aquatic organisms. Riparian ecosystems involve ecological, socioeconomic, and cultural functions, and besides, the most of functions are significant both locally and affect physical, chemical, and biological components and processes in the landscape. And there are a lot of riverfront design, and waterfront landscape are charming, and also urban waterfront regions planning and landscape design is the most studied in the recent years. And besides, many design projects are studied. One of these projects is Chicago Riverfront design. And Chicago River supported better environmental and people-friendly policies. The project involves pedestrian connection along the river and also recreational facilities. The Chicago Riverwalk plays a significant role in the ecological, recreational, and economic benefit of the city. And there are 3 phases in this project. Phases 2 and 3 involve 5 blocks between Stacy Street and Franklin Street. The plan covers a pedestrian connection along the river. And this project developed the city of Chicago. And the other project is Los Angeles Riverfront design. The first 32 miles of the river is the intersection of 10 council districts and 20 neighborhood councils and 10 community planning areas. And water preservation is one of the crucial activities for the Los Angeles County Department of Public Works. The county's policy aims to protect the winter stormwater runoff possible, considering the runoff quantity and quality, capacities of spreading groundwater conditions, geologic and grounds. And the project involves bridges, parks, job opportunities, bicycle paths, pedestrian trails, and tourism, and of course water quality. The flood control, I'm so sorry, the last project, the Guadalupe River project. There is a long history of winter flooding about this river. The flood control project was completed in 2004, and I'm so sorry. And also this project presents recreational facilities to the local community, ecological sound system and habitat restoration. And this project aims to reduce the climate change effect, and river will decrease climate effect by around 45% in the short term and 60% in the long term. And besides, this river protects native fish habitats, native spaces, and maintains a natural riparian corridor. And in conclusion, climate change causes the demonstration of hydraulic ecological balance in the whole urban area. It brings about sea level rise, flood risks, heat islands in the Earth's surface, and according to environmental, social, and economic conditions start to influence drastically. Greenhouse gas emissions such as carbon dioxide, nitrogen dioxide started to accumulate in the atmosphere. Fossil fuels, changes in land use, and deforestation caused the problem of climate change. The protection of water quality becomes an important issue for cities. Riparian systems can protect urban habitat and ecosystem services in urban areas by enhancing the water cycle. If effective project design can be constructed in all cities, sea level rise, heat island effect, and flood risks will be prevented. Thanks to this project, city developers should connect the water surface. Therefore, riverfront design tools such as river banks, river terrace, river islands, river balconies are useful and essential. Riparian buffer zone also should be involved in riparian corridor, and various plant species should be used in this project. And my references, and thank you for listening to me. And I would like to special thanks my advisor Ayşe Kalaycı, and thank you.
And thank you for this very informative presentation. You still have 6 minutes, so we can have questions from the participants. If there isn't any, I have one for you.
Mom, by the way, I'd like to say something. I think Fatiha is back. If they have
Yes.
questions, they may ask both of them, if it's okay.
Okay.
If one
Okay,
have a
Fatih,
question for...
Sure. Fatiha, you can complete your presentation if you like. After you finish, we can take questions for both of you.
Okay, hocam. I am sorry, I have a problem connection.
That's fine. It happens.
Okay. Can you see my presentation? After the study of the morphological analysis, we can say that we have antrovector architecture, hierarchical street system, the blind alley that's between 1 meter to 2 meter, and for the streets is 4 meter, and the template is limited between ground floor to the first floor, and we have blind facades. In the second, we study the defensive system of Qasr al-Hawaita. The defensive system of Qasr al-Hawaita is contained ramparts, houses, towers, and doors. The Qasr al-Hawaita is characterized by its defensive system through its fabric, which is closed and compact, formed by houses, which are ramparts houses. Here we have some photos. We have a photo about the door of the Qasr, and here we have the ramparts houses. About the current state of the Qasr al-Hawaita, here we have the plan of the Qasr. We can see the compact of the fabric. Here we have houses. Here we have the mosque, and here we have rampart houses. Here we have towers, two doors, and the garden, river, and another construction. For the current situation, we can say in green, that's the rampart house in bad situation, and for the towers, which is in red, and this door and ramparts are in ruins. There is no existence for today. So when we study the diagnosis of this Qasr, we can say the pathologies noticed in the Qasr al-Hawaita are the use of heterogeneous materials like the cement, superficial cracks, the degradation of the plaster, degradation of the base of walls, the capillary rise, and the degradation of doors. The main cause of these pathologies are the first is the absence of maintenance. There is no maintenance, and also the water stratification and rainwater infiltration. So for the restitution of the defensive system of Qasr al-Hawaita, we propose some interventions like reconstruction and restitution of the ramparts, restitution and rehabilitation of the ramparts house, and reconstruction and restitution of towers, and rehabilitation and restitution of the doors. After the study of the morphological analysis and the restitution of the defensive system, we can propose a global strategy, which is based in an innovation plan, which includes various planning operations. In the first, encouraging cultural tourism through the creation of tourist routes for attracting national and international tourists. Second, highlighting the scientific tourism value in Al-Hawaita through the funerary monuments that are located near to Al-Hawaita. And the more important is the valorization of the intangible heritage of Al-Hawaita, which is represented by the weaving of crafts, traditional clothes, holidays, and popular events. For the conclusion, we can say for the preservation and revolution of Qasr al-Hawaita in Lagouat, the implementation of an intervention methodology for the rehabilitation of the Qasr is necessary. All these proposals and solutions were brought from the desirable theoretical framework to be applied in reality. And the final objective that we wish to achieve of keeping the historical and architectural aspect of the Qasr of Al-Hawaita as a testimony of a rich civilization in order to ensure its conservation and transition to future generations. That's all of my studies. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, I will answer it.
Thank you, Fatiha. Are there questions for her? Let me ask you one. Fatiha, what is the function that you are suggesting as a new usage type for this construction?
Hocam, you talk about the proposed strategy. That's it.
Not only the strategy, I understand that you are planning to make it a tourism attractive place. I don't know, but what is the function that you want to give to the construction?
I will.
And it could be a museum or a eating facility or some kind of art show place.
No, I will lead the houses, and I want to the proprietor of these houses come back and live in these houses. That's what I want. If there is no there no accepted, I want to do some houses like hot houses for the tourists, like hotel. That's what I want, and the more important is the preservation of these houses.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other question for Fatiha? Is there any questions for Hande? Okay, let me ask you one question, Hande. Hande, you explain the ecological functions of riparian zones really well, but I want to ask you if the riparian zones in urban areas also have a social function. Are there any ecological services in social parts that we can provide from these kind of zones? As a landscape architect, what do you think?
Riparian zone provides social activities, a lot of activities because city dwellers connected to water. They can feel water spread, so that's important for this situation. And ecological function is most crucial topic for this design. So yes, I can explain this. What can I say? I don't know.
I have a quick question to Ms. Hande, if you allow me.
Of course, sure.
When you said like you'll be able to reduce the climate, or maybe the climate change with I don't know 45%, or maybe in long term 60%. What are the bases? I don't know. What did you use to get that estimations that it could be around 45 or 60?
This knowledge is related to my references. My references said to reduce, maybe they measure a lot of, how can I say, I don't know, research about this topic, and they explain this design reduce and in short term 45%, and in long term 60% in the for long term. So I don't know, they measure this percentage.
Let me make a small contribution here. You know, in most of the urban areas, the riparian zones, the streams are covered with cement and they don't breathe. But if you redesign them and let the soil to breathe, and if you do plantation work there, you will contribute not only the ecological healing of the city, but also the climate change. You can reduce the heat island effect, and you can reduce the carbon solution, you know, and
greenhouse solution.
And also you can have cleaner air, cleaner water, just by not covering the streams in the urban areas, but by cement.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think
thank you, Hocam.
It's time to
it's Najla, I guess. Najla is here, I guess.
Yes.
Hello everyone, I am here, yeah.
Najla, yeah. Globalization process in architecture, right?
Exactly, Hocam. Let me share my
we are
screen.
listening to you.
Okay, great. But I apologize, first of all, I cannot share my camera because my face is full of red bubbles because of the allergy that I have due to the springtime.
Get well soon.
Okay, let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
We do.
Okay, great. So I will share with you this part of research that I have done. It's kind of a theoretical research because it's a part of my PhD dissertation, we can say that, about globalization processes in architecture. So to start, I think in order to begin discussing about globalization, I think it's so essential to highlight Karl Marx's anticipation. His anticipation about the current process of globalization by describing by him historically how modern industry established the world market in that time by the bourgeoisie class who were expanding their products to reach the whole globe in that time and making connections everywhere, which we can say lead to create a cosmopolitan character of production and consumption. According to the American historian Bruce Maslish, he assumes that globalization can be seen as a thread run through all the past humanities. Like we can say, starting from the ancestors, our ancestors, and their migration across the world, which makes no, according to him, no fixed beginning, and nor, as he said, nor expected end of globalization. For him, he thinks and he believes in kind of earlier globalization, where merchant empires shifts, as he used this word, is apart from it. And another kind of globalization for him is a new globalization, which emerged after the World War II. In that time, globalization becomes kind of a word in human vocabulary, which dealt in that time with issues and problems. We can say that can be solved only by global efforts. For the sociological professor Leslie Sclair, he defines globalization for him by three aspects. For him, the first aspect is generic globalization, which is related to him to electronic and post-colonial revolution, which are the most significant, we all know, phenomena in the mid of 20th century. Also capitalist globalization, which is related, we know also the dominance of capitalism as a global system in the start of 21st century. And the third globalization for him, for Leslie Sclair, is alternative globalization, which for him, according to him, supports global participations and human values and opposes the negative aspects of globalization's aspects. Globalization changed the relations between producers and consumers, and also it broke in various links between labor with family, our daily life, as well as national attachments, social and cultural aspects. We can say that it can be easily affected by the strong approach of this globalization, where we can include here localities of nations which faced and still facing this approach and exposed to the danger of getting disappeared over time. According to the Dutch architect and architectural theorist Rem Koolhaas, he believes that globalization has two sides. He believes that it destabilizes and redefines the architectural imagination. It extends kind of the sphere or the possibility between better and worse, as well as for him, globalization leads to the collisions of cultures and kind of important fundamental reshapes of architectural discourse. Some features of global architecture. The first one is competition of supremacy. This is one of the important signs of this global architecture in the last decades. Competition for supremacy is a global icon, which is represented by the race between nations to build the world's, we all know the world's tallest building as a trend or as an image of global architecture. Skyscrapers, for example, like we see in China, Malaysia, or the other Western world. Also the tendency of building phenomena, prestige. The second feature is the global architecture firms, which really affected in global architecture. Its practices in the growth of global networks of these firms' offices in many cities around the world, starting from the 1990s, for example, Nick and Siki from Japan and Gensler in the United States. Also, we cannot just forget or don't mention the role of internet as the leading cause of this global community, due to how it helps the spread of new digital networks and enabling the national transactions, of course, which are the engines of globalization nowadays and starting from its emergence. Like internet also contributed in this aspect of the growth of architectural media and the migration of architectural publication to the network platforms like ArcDaily, Architera, and others. Of course, this led, how we say, to like worldwide virtual movement or circulation of ideas and products, and also images of architecture that we can see in any moment. So about the aspect of global and local architecture, like nowadays searching for national and local identity in architecture is not the same anymore, like how it was before, dominated in the 1980s, for example. It did not continue after the 2000s due to the, as we said, domination of other priorities for the people, which emerged in the architectural scenes. Like, for example, constructing without the use of local materials, new interests, like, for example, the interest in advanced technologies, materials, building constructions, and the use, of course, as I mentioned before, the technologies of computer. And this, we say, not separation, this detachment or this difference from the local and this tendency into more global aspects also can be seen in various regions around the world. As an example, in this study, my study in Northern Africa, like Algeria, buildings constructed by the French colonial era were influenced by the ideas of Le Corbusier, Cerfus, Michael, and Pouillon. The area of Babzoun in Algiers, which is the capital of Algeria, constructed as European quarter, as we see in this picture. For example, there was also some neighborhoods which were designed by the German architect Lichtenstein. What do you say? Like cultural, historical, racial differences are all kind of aspects which dominated in the building operations during the French colonialism in Algeria. Of course, it focused on the hybridity and maintaining the dominance of different colonial architecture, ignored, of course, the local socio-cultural factors like family structure, the place, and specifically the privacy of women, as Algeria as an Islamic country.
Necla, you have 3 minutes, including questions part.
Okay, so during the post-independence era of the impact of capitalism and the political and economic shifts in the late, we can say 80s, it contributed in the change in Algerian people's perception of cultural preferences and their also domestic places. For example, as in this photo, the example of Cartier, which was an important space in Algerian families before the 80s due its primary role for privacy as women's private place, even though it is not inserted anymore in the plans or among the list, the criteria in the domestic places. In Istanbul, for example, which also an example of a global city and similar to so many global cities in the world, by the global design of housing, regions, apartments, transportation systems, international airports, etc. It starts after the 1980s when upper classes wanted to move away from massive center to the metropolis forests and surrounded by the city were the suitable area to build these new communities which belong to versions of global models, because city administrations in that time works with famous architects. Okay, briefly, one of the reasons which developed aspects of globalization, for example, in Istanbul, is marketing strategies. Usually the advertisements related to the housing contains representations of Western suburban lifestyle. And okay, as we can conclude that globalization approach can be defined from various perspectives, as we saw in the beginning of this presentation. And but the common point is the mobility of thoughts, objects, people, and ideas between regions, nations, and continents, as it is all connected without separation, regardless under which circumstances it happens. And yes, localities of nations, which is the main idea of my research, can be seen in the interchanges which are taking place in the use of original spaces. Its particular features, certain cultures, the way of living, of thinking, and the way of seeing, just for the sake of new and modern. Thank you.
Thank you, Necla, for sharing us your research. I'm sorry we ran out of time. If we have time at the end of the session, we are going to maybe take questions. Sorry about that. And the next presentation is going to be by Ahenk Karcı Demirkol. Biyofilik tasarım kriterleri bağlamında ofis tasarımı. Evet Ahenk, 15 dakikan var. Sorularda
presentation because it is closed. Okay, thank you. Sorry. Okay, can you see it clearly?
Evet.
Tamam, başlıyorum. Merhaba öncelikle. Benim sunumum biyofilik tasarım kriterlerinin ofis bağlamında incelenmesi. Artan kentleşme insanların doğayla ilişkisinin azalmasına neden olmaktadır. Günümüzde insanlar zamanının yaklaşık %90'ını kapalı alanlarla geçirmektedir. Fiziksel çevre dolaylı olarak insanların ruh sağlığını etkilemektedir. Yapılı çevrenin kaygı, yorgunluk ve stres düzeyi üzerindeki olumsuz etkileri insanların sosyal ilişkilerine de yansımaktadır. Özellikle sanayi devriminden sonra artan kurumsal şirketlerle birlikte çalışma mekanları ihtiyaçları artmış ve ofis kavramı önem kazanmıştır. Özellikle modern kentlerde çalışma koşullarına bağlı olarak da ofis mekanlarının bu nedenle yapımlarında artış olmuştur. Ofis, insanların grup halinde ya da bireysel olarak çalıştıkları küçük ya da büyük ölçekli mekanlar olarak tanımlanabilir. Biyofilik tasarım kısaca insanların mental ve fiziksel sağlıklarını arttırmak amacıyla doğal unsurların ve desenlerin mimari tasarımlarda uygulanması olarak tanımlanabilir. Biyofilik tasarım kriterlerinin mimari tasarımlarda başarılı bir şekilde uygulanması, yapılı çevrenin sürdürülebilirliğini sağlarken insanların hayat kalitesini de pozitif yönde etkiler. Biyofilik tasarım kriterlerini barındırarak tasarlanmış ofis mekanlarının çalışanlar üzerindeki etkileri incelendiğinde performans artışı, üretkenlik artışı, konsantrasyon artışı, pozitif duygu durumu artışı gibi hayat kalitesini arttırıcı nitelikte faydalar sağladığı saptanmıştır. Bu çalışmada biyofili ve biyofilik tasarım incelenmiş. Ayrıca biyofilik tasarım kriterlerine göre Amazon Seattle ana merkezi değerlendirilmiştir. Çalışmanın yöntemi 3 aşamadan oluşmaktadır. İlk aşaması olan literatür taramasında biyofili ve biyofilik tasarım elementleri araştırılmış ve örnek alan seçilmiştir. Analiz aşamasında ise literatür taramasına göre belirlenen kriterler kapsamında Amazon ana merkezi değerlendirilmiştir. En son sonuç ve değerlendirmede ise biyofilik tasarımın günümüzde biliyorsunuz bu Covid'de de insanlar hep evlerden çalışmaya başladılar veya zaten çoğumuz ofislerden çalışıyorduk. Kendi ofislerimizde uygulayabileceğimiz önerilerini sunmaya çalıştım. Şimdi ilk önce biyofili ve biyofilik tasarım kavramları hakkında bilgi vermek istiyorum. Biyofili kelimesi eski Yunanca'da biyo yaşam veya canlılarla ilgili, filia bir şeye karşı duyulan sevgi ve eğilim kelimelerinden türetilmiştir. Yani biyofilik kavramının temeli antik Yunan'da yaşama ve canlılara karşı duyan sevgi anlamına gelmektedir. Biyofili fikri insan evrimi anlayışına dayanmaktadır. İnsanlık tarihinin %99'undan fazlasında insanlar diğer canlılarla iç içe avcı toplayıcı gruplar halinde yaşamıştır. Şimdi bu şekilden de görebildiğiniz üzere yaklaşık 40 bin yıl önce mağaralara bilinen en resimler çizilmeye başlanmış. İnsanlar 12 bin yıl önce tarıma başlamış. 6 bin yıl önce şehirleşme başlangıcı olmuş. 4 bin yıl önce seri araç ve gereçlerin üretimi olmuş. Bizim bu kullandığımız işte teknolojik aletlerse sadece 200 yıllık bu insanın oluşu dününden bugününe bakıldığı zaman. Şimdi buna bakıldığı, bu tablodan da görüldüğü üzere aslında insan beyni makinelerin düzenlediği bir dünyada değil, biyomerkezli bir dünyada evrimleşmiştir. Günümüzdeki modern hayat insanlık tarihi için oldukça yenidir. Bu şekilde düşündüğümüzde insanların o eski dünyaya ait izlerin silindiğini görmek insan beyninde daha da imkansızlaşıyor. Biyofili kavramının gelişimi ve etkileyen teorilerden bahsedeceğim biraz da. 1964 yılında ilk Erik Fromm biyofili kavramını ortaya çıkarmıştır. Daha sonra Roger Ulrich tarafından stres azaltma teorisi geliştirilmiştir. Bu teoriye göre doğanın stres ve olumsuz duygu durumlarını azaltıcı etkisi olduğu düşünülmektedir. 1984 yılında biyolog Edward Wilson biyofiliyi insanın yaşama ve yaşamı içeren süreçlere karşı olan doğuştan gelen eğilimi olarak tanımlamıştır. Wilson, biyofili hipotezinde insanların kalıtsal olarak doğayla bağlantısı olduğunu ve doğanın insanların fiziksel ve mental sağlığı için gerekli olduğunu belirtmektedir. 1989, Rachel and Stephen Kaplan dikkat restorasyon teorisini geliştirmişlerdir. Bu teoriye göre insanlar doğada vakit geçirirken ve hatta doğayı izledikten sonra bile konsantrasyon düzeyleri artmaktadır. 1993 yılında Edward Wilson ve Stephen Keller biyofili hipotezini geliştirerek Biyofilya kitabını yayınlamışlardır. 2005 yılında Stephen Keller, Building for a Life, Designing and Understanding the Human Nature Connection isimli kitabında biyofilik tasarım kavramını tanıtmış ve doğanın mimari tasarımlarda deneyimlenmesini amaçlayan 70'ten fazla kriter geliştirmiştir. Şimdi insan evrimi boyunca insanın hayatta kalması ve neslin devam ettirebilmesi doğa koşullarına adaptasyonunun başarısıyla ilgilidir. Bu süreçte insan doğa koşullarını içselleştirerek geliştirir. Bunun sonucunda oluşan insanla doğa arasındaki kolektif bağ ve yakınlık hissi biyofilik tasarımın temelidir. Keller, biyofilik tasarımın planlanması için çok yönlü hiyerarşik bir çerçeve geliştirmiştir. Buna göre biyofilik tasarımın 6 temel unsuru bulunmaktadır. Bu unsurlar çevresel özellikler, doğal şekiller, doğal patern ve süreçler, ışık ve mekan temelli ilişkiler, evrimleşmiş insan-doğa ilişkileridir. Ve bu ilişkilerin 60'ın üzerinde, 70'in üzerinde tasarım özelliği bulunmaktadır. Biyofilik tasarım elementleri insanlar tarafından 3 şekilde deneyimlenmektedirler. Birincisi doğayla doğrudan temas. İkincisi doğal öğelerin taklit edilerek tasarımda kullanılması. Ve üçüncüsü de mekan deneyimidir. Doğayla doğrudan temas, ışık, hava, su, bitki varlığı, hayvanlar, doğal peyzajlar, ekosistemler ve ateş sayesinde doğrudan insanlar tarafından deneyimleniyor. Doğayla dolaylı temas ise doğal görüntülerin, doğal materyallerin, doğal renklerin, doğal ışık ve hava simülasyonunun, doğal şekiller ve formların, doğal şekillerin formlarının ve taklit edilmesiyle bilgi zenginliği, değişim, yaş ve zamanın patinası, doğal geometriler ve biyomimikrinin tasarımlarda kullanılmasıyla gerçekleşiyor. Mekanın deneyimi ise mekanda manzara ve sığınma, organize edilmiş karmaşıklık, parçaların bütüne entegrasyonu, mobilite ve yön bulma, mekana kültürel ve ekolojik bağlılık hissiyatının gerçekleştirilmesiyle oluyor. Amazon Seattle merkezi bizim bu biyofilik tasarım kriterlerini örnek üzerinde anlatmak için seçtiğimiz örnek alan çalışması. Amazon Seattle'da bulunan ana merkezi eskiden depo ve tersanelerden oluşan bir mahalleymiş. Daha sonra teknoloji merkezine dönüştürülse de çevresiyle oldukça uyumlu bir şekilde inşa edilmiş. Bünyesinde 24.000'den fazla çalışanı barındırmaktadır. Amazon ana merkezi resimde de görüldüğü üzere 3.3 metrekarelik bir alanda kurulmuş 3 katlı kule ve ortada da kubbe binasından oluşmaktadır. Amazon ana merkezi önceden rezervasyon şartıyla halka açıktır. Doğal formlar ve desenler kullanarak tasarlanmış kubbe konstrüksiyonunda yürüyüş yolları, doğrusal olmayan kavisli geçiş alanları bulunmaktadır. Kubbelerde 40.000'den fazla canlı bitki türü bulunmaktadır. Kubbeler çalışanlara doğal aydınlatmalı, bitkilerle çevrili, kapalı toplantı odalarının ve ofislerinin olmadığı bir çalışma imkanı sunmaktadır. Özellikle kubbeler çok güçlü evrimleşmiş insan-doğa ilişkisini sağlamaktadır. Mekanın ortak alanlarında dönen sanat sergileri, temalı binalar, odalar, bağımsız yerel satıcılar bulunmaktadır. Ayrıca çalışanların veya ziyaretçilerin yanlarında evcil hayvanlarını olan köpeklerini getirmelerine de olanak sağlanmıştır. Resimde görüldüğü gibi mekanın tasarımında doğal materyaller kullanılmış, doğal şekiller ve formlar taklit edilmiştir. Doğal ve yapay ışığa yer verilmiştir. Şu resimde petek taklidi var, yanında ağaç var gördüğünüz üzere sizin de. Ondan sonra bakıldığında dikey de canlı bitki kullanımı var. Doğal taşlara yer vermişler. Şu merdivenli olan resimde sol tarafta gördüğünüz üzere ışık oyunları yapılmış yukarıdaki yerde. Yani aslında tasarımında bunlar oldukça doğal şeyleri ve materyalleri de kullanarak başarılı bir biyofilik tasarım örneği gerçekleştirmişler bence. Şimdi devam ediyorum. Zemin katta bulunan kamusal alan Amazon ana merkezinin kültürel bir kimliğe bürünmesine hizmet etmektedir. Bu alan kent sakinlerine park ve köpek parkı olarak hizmet vermektedirler. Burada çalışanlar ayrıca buraya çıkıp öğle aralarında vakit geçirebiliyorlar. Bir de halka burası 7/24 açık. Birbirine bağlı yürüyüş yolları, ağaç evler ve bitki türleriyle çevrilmiştir. Karmaşık fakat düzenli bir alan hissiyatı yaratmaktadır. Tamam. Sonuç ve değerlendirme geldiğimizde, şimdi bu daha önce belirttiğim tabloya göre bu Amazon'un Seattle'da bulunan ana merkezini değerlendirdik. Bu aslında bu ana biyofilik tasarım elementleri kapsamında değerlendirildiğinde oldukça başarılı bir mekan olmuş. Çünkü baştan buranın biyofilik bir mekan olması planlanarak inşa edilip tasarlanmış. Ona göre planlanmış aslında. Burada sadece ateş ve biyomimikriden faydalanılmamış bu tasarım yapılırken diğer tüm tasarım elementlerini içeriyor. Dünyada da zaten bu hani biyofilik tasarım dendiği zaman oldukça da bilinen bir örnek. Kaplan'ın belirttiği gibi insanlar doğada vakit geçirdikten ve hatta doğanın sahnelerine baktıktan sonra bile konsantrasyon seviyelerinde bir artış gözlenmiştir. Bununla ilgili zaten yapılmış bir sürü bilimsel çalışma var. Özellikle iş yerlerine doğal unsurlar bulunması da çalışanların bir performansını artırıyor. Biyofilik tasarımın temel amacı insanların yaşamakta olduğu yapılı çevrede doğayla ilişkinin sürdürülmesidir. Bu şekilde yapılı çevreyle oluşturulmuş yaşam alanlarının doğadan ilham alınan görsel ve duyusal uyaranlar dahil edilerek insanın mental ve fiziksel sağlığına katkıda bulunur ve insanların hayat kalitesini iyileştiriyor. Bu Amazon ana merkezi örneğinde görüldüğü üzere tasarıma sadece doğa entegre edilmemiş, doğal unsurlar da taklit edilerek insanların görsel ve duyusal uyaranları vasıtasıyla doğanın hatırlanması sağlanmıştır. Özellikle ofis gibi...
Parla canım, 2 dakikadan az zamanı kaldı sorularla birlikte.
Özellikle ofis gibi çalışma ortamlarında doğal unsurların kullanımı hayat kalitesini artırmaktadır. Bu yönde herkes tarafından kolaylıkla uygulanabilir bazı uygulamalar önerilmiştir. Bunlar canlı bitki varlığının bulundurulması, renk seçiminde çarpıcı ve kontrast tonlardan kaçınılması, özellikle toprak renklerinin ofis tasarımında kullanılması, deri, ahşap, pamuk gibi doğal materyallerin kullanılması, doğal malzemelerden yapılmış doğayı hatırlatıcı objelerin kullanılması, su kütlelerinin bulundurulması, doğal patern ve fraktalleri taklit eden şekillerin kullanılması, gün ışığı alan yerlerin tercih edilmesi veya iyi düzeyde gün ışığını taklit eden aydınlatma elemanlarının kullanılması, mekanda doğal havalandırma imkanı bulunması ya da doğal havalandırma iyi taklit eden geliştirilmiş havalandırma sistemlerinin kullanılması, doğayı hatırlatıcı tablo, heykel gibi dekoratif objelerde ofis tasarımlarına yer verilmesidir. Kentleşme ile birlikte insanların doğadan koptuğu bu günlerde doğanın tekrardan ilişkisine sağlanmasına yönelik tasarım anlayışları oldukça önem taşımaktadır. Şehirleşmiş alanlarda yaşamakta olan insanların çoğu genellikle ofis gibi kapalı ortamlarda zamanlarının çoğunu geçirmektedir. Biyofilik tasarım elementlerinin mekan tasarımında uygulanmasının insanların hayatındaki olumlu etkileri göz önüne alındığında bunların bu tasarım elementlerine mekan tasarımlarında mümkün olduğunda çok yer verilmesi gerektiği düşünülmektedir. Beni dinlediğiniz için teşekkür ederim. Umarım zamanını çok
Teşekkür
aşmadım.
ederiz. Zamanı aşmadın. Ama sorulara vakit kalmadı. The next presentation is going to be by Hasan Abdulrahman, the cost implication of some selected feeder bus routes in İzmir, Turkey. Is Hasan here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. You can share your screen and start. You have 15 minutes, including the question and answer part.
Okay. Thank you. Can you see my screen now? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Good afternoon. You are welcome all to this conference, 5th International Student Symposium. I'm here to present my topic, the cost implication of some selected feeder bus routes in İzmir. I'm going to run through the presentation by discussing the discussion, introduction to feeder bus route network design. I'll talk about the cost components and how the cost parameters were estimated, true value of time. Then I'll discuss a little bit about the multiple travel salesman algorithm, which will be used to design the feeder bus route. And we'll discuss the results, then conclusion. First, usually as urban mobility increases with cars and all small vehicles, we notice congestion, then possibly air pollution and possibly accidents. So usually transportation experts agree that public transportation or mass transportation systems are the solution to the aforementioned problems. As you can see from the picture, the various modes of transportation and how public transportation can be a solution to our urban mobility problems. So usually, amongst all mass transportation, we have various types of mass transportation, such as bus, train, even metro or ferry transportation. As you can see from the picture, a case study of İzmir city, whereby we have different modes of transportation. However, with these different modes of transportation, we have the problem of integration, because some modes of transportation like the train or bus have different capacity and operate along different lines. For example, İzmir may operate along the main corridor of a city from north to south, while the buses are closer to the people. So there's a feeder bus route network design problem. The line here represents a mainline transit system, such as train, and the crosses here represent a bus stop. So for us to integrate train station and bus stops, we need feeder bus route network design so as to expand the coverage of the train systems. So to plan a feeder bus route, we need to know the location of the bus stops and the train station. An example of a map is shown above. The dot signifies the bus stops and the star signifies a train station. After that, we need the transit network connectivity, which a schematic is shown on your screen above. Then we need transit demand matrix, and we need cost parameters to estimate the value of the feeder bus routes. So we took a case study of İzmir, particularly a train station, Şirinye station, which have on your left, you can see the demand of all eastbound stations. Şirinye has a very, very high demand, so we selected Şirinye station for our analysis. And from our analysis, we found out that 57% of the people using eastbound station are transfer users, which buttresses our point that feeder bus routes are being used in this station. So We selected 5 feeder bus routes. As you can see from this figure, we have 5 feeder bus routes connected to the center, that is to this train station. These dots represent bus stops all around. So we need to evaluate, are these bus routes valuable, or are they efficient enough or cost effective enough? So this is the structure of the bus routes we selected, and this is their demand per hour. So to evaluate the feeder bus route, we took cost parameters and performance measures formulas from a journal, Core and PAL 1989, which are route length, average frequency, total vehicle miles, total passenger miles, bus operating cost, bus waiting cost, bus rider cost, and bus user cost. The bus riding cost will represent the revenue generated by the feeder bus route, and the bus user cost will represent the benefit. So for us to estimate the operating cost, we need the value of time. We need to estimate the value of time of each individual in İzmir, for example. So according to the Statistic Bureau, we use the GDP method to estimate the value of time. So the GDP per capita is mentioned here, and from that we estimated the value of time in İzmir, which is about 15.5 tele per hour. And also for us to estimate the fuel cost, which will be used in estimating operating cost, we used a paper from Topal and Nache 2018, which estimate the fuel consumption of 3 buses. And as we know, the main buses used in İzmir are diesel buses. So from there, we got our parameters that we'll use to estimate our cost parameters. So when we evaluated the routes, the first column here represents the operating cost, and the second column represents the user cost or the riding cost, as the case may be. This third column represents the difference between the operating cost and the riding cost or revenue, as the case may be. So as you can see, all the feeder bus routes are operating at a loss. Now, even though they are operating at a loss, we understand from literature that public bus or public transportation is usually geared towards social welfare. So which is understandable why these results are so. So, but in foregoing, we still want to present our method now to try to see if we can improve this feeder bus route system. So we now use an algorithm called fixed start multiple travel salesman algorithm. This fixed start multiple salesman algorithm tries to find an optimal solution in such a way that it connects all these dots to a particular destination at the shortest possible distance. So for that, this represents the location of the bus stops, and this represents the final route structure. This distance is the minimum distance that we can connect all these stops without repetition. So in summary, every stop will be visited once without each stop being repeated in other routes, as you can see from the first example, that most routes were repeated, most stops are repeated in some routes. So for us to evaluate, we apply the algorithm for the case study, and we generate a route on our right-hand side. Similarly, we cluster the bus stops, since there are many, and we apply the same algorithm to see if we can try to reduce the cost. So the cost components were evaluated as thus. the existing condition is on your far left. Then the algorithm we applied before we apply clustering, and the algorithm after clustering. We found that before clustering, the profit or the loss was reduced by 4%, and after clustering, the loss was reduced by -7%. Also, the frequency, that is the number of trips per each route, was increased before clustering by 4% and 11%. The system performance measure, that is the total route length for existing condition, was reduced after we applied the algorithm before by -28%, and with the algorithm with clustering by -43%. So is the total vehicle kilometer and total passenger kilometer. So in conclusion, we evaluated bus routes, existing bus routes, and we tried to improve it by applying multiple travel salesman algorithm, which we evaluated 2 scenarios. The first scenario is algorithm, the multiple travel salesman algorithm without clustering and with clustering. From our result, we found that the existing bus stops are operating at a loss and could be improved, and this algorithm has a potential of improving the existing bus routes. Thank you. Any question?
Thank you for this very informative presentation. It was really interesting. Is there any questions for Hassan? I think there is no. Then we can have the last presentation. It's going to be conducted by Gökçe Gönüllü Sütçüoğlu, first stage in climate adapted urban planning mapping, local climate zones of urban areas. Hello.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to share, I think, I hope.
You have 15 minutes, Gökçe, including answers and questions.
Okay. I'm sharing, but
Alif, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. I already gave her the permission for sharing long ago.
Paylaşma izni vermiş ama.
yes, I know, but still I can't.
Sunumu Alif'e atabilir misiniz? Alif paylaşsın.
Bir dakika hocam.
Evet, böyle de yapabiliriz.
Oldu sanırım.
Foto şehir yaptım ben hocam. Hani istediği zaman paylaşabilir.
Tamam.
Şu an açılıyor olabilir.
Açılmıyor. Herhangi bir hareket yok.
Allah Allah.
Gökcan'ım bana atın isterseniz ya da Alif'e fark etmez. Hemen biz paylaşalım. Ona göre şey yapayım.
Tamam, atıyorum hemen.
Hoş geldiniz Mehmet Hocam.
Hoş bulduk. Nasıl gidiyor hocam?
Güzel gidiyor hocam.
Anne gönderdim sana. Merhaba hocam bu arada.
Merhaba, hoş geldiniz Gökçen.
Hoş bulduk.
Ufak teknik aksaklıklar oldu hocam ama hallediyor.
Hocam artık ister istemez oluyor. Okulumuzun da interneti çok iyi olduğundan biraz ondan da oluyor.
Evet.
Şimdi kimdeydi hocam sıra?
Ben de hocam.
Sizde mi?
Paylaşmada
Tamam.
bir sıkıntı yaşadım. Hande'ye gönderdim. Şimdi o paylaşacak.
Tamam.
Merkür Retrosu'ndan hocam. Okulumuzun interneti iyi de.
Henüz gelmedi Gökçen'in.
Maille attım. Gönderilmiş görünüyor ama
Ben de salonları geziyorum hocam. Birbirine giriyorum, birbirine giriyorum. Hatta girmişken sizlerden de müsait olan arkadaşlar kamerasını açarsa, bazılarının açık ama bir şöyle salon hatırası fotoğraf alabiliriz arkadaşlar.
Allah Allah,
Sabah
gelmedi.
yapmadık hocam. Sabah söyleyecektim.
WhatsApp'tan atar mısınız Gökçen'im? Oradan deneyeyim.
atayım.
Necla, Sara, Faruk hocam, Hilal. Heris, oradaysan sen de aç.
Evet, Faruk hocam Tropikada'dan.
Evet, hep oradan katılıyor hocam zaten. Necla, Sara, Hilal açamadı. Evet arkadaşlar, çekiyorum o zaman. Tamam, hocam sizin gözünüz kapalı çıkmış Ayşe hocam, bir dakika.
Öyle mi?
hocam.
Evet, Heris de açtı. Heris de metroda. Evet, teşekkür ederiz. Buyurun hocam, siz devam edin.
Ulaştı mı sunum?
Ben de
Evet, geldi.
WhatsApp'tan. Hı hı, tamam.
Aynen, şimdi açtım, paylaşıyorum.
Tamam. Teşekkürler.
Hande, Gökçe Hanım kendi bilgisayarından değiştirdikçe sen de öyle
O tık sesini duyduktan sonra ben de yapacağım hocam.
Tamam, başlatıyorum sürenizi.
Tamam hocam. Teşekkürler.
Biraz zaman kaybettik ya, onu da düşünerek biraz hızlı.
Tamam. Teşekkürler. Good
Kolay gelsin.
afternoon, dear professors and friends. First of all, I would like to thank dear professors who offered us this opportunity, and I'm glad to be a participant. Today, I'm going to talk about climate change and urban planning. I will try to give information about the creation of local climate zones, which form the basis of climate modeling studies. We can change. What does climate change mean that we have heard frequently in recent years? Climate change, the other one, Hande. No, second one. This is for, okay, this is. Climate change describes a change in the average conditions such as temperature and rainfall in a region over a long period of time. Scientists have observed Earth's surface is warming, and many of the warmest years on record have happened in the past 20 years. The sun's rays, as well as ultraviolet radiation, penetrate the Earth. The temperature of the atmosphere rises. Harmful pollutants in the atmosphere, such as carbon dioxide, trap this heat and radiation, preventing the planet from cooling. The temperature of our atmosphere has risen 1.80 degrees Celsius since 19th century.
You can say next and she can.
Okay. What does climate change mean that we have heard frequently? This is the same story. Climate change affects all regions around the world. Polar ice shields are melting and the sea is rising. In some regions, extreme weather events and rainfall are becoming more common, while others are experiencing more extreme heat waves and droughts. These impacts are expected to intensify in the coming decades. This slide explains what can happen if the Earth's atmosphere warms up to 4 degrees. We can list these possibilities as follows. The emergence of diseases by drinking and utility water as a result of warming waters and increased floods. Infectious disease spread as a result of the increased prevalence of malaria and dengue viruses as humidity and temperature rise. And 250,000 deaths by 2030 due to these diseases. I think most of all had died. Drought has aggravated the global hunger crisis, making it more difficult and costly to obtain food. With increased air pollution and a longer pollen season, allergies and becomes more prevalent and 7 million deaths due to these diseases and air pollution. These are the results of climate change. And the next, okay, thank you. Cities around the world are the main cause of climate change, but can also offer a part of the solution to reducing the harmful greenhouse gases that are causing global temperature to rise. Over half of the world's population lives in cities, and this is likely to increase to over 2/3 by 2030. Cities use a large proportion of the world's energy supply and are responsible for around 70% of global energy-related greenhouse gas emissions, which trap heat and result in the warming of Earth. The huge carbon footprint created by our cities results from poor planning and layout. Low-density suburban sprawl with the little public transport and homes far from work and shops means more cars on the roads emitting carbon dioxide. In addition, most of the ever-increasing number of buildings still use fossil fuels for their energy needs. But energy, building, mobility, and planning solutions and innovations in cities have the potential to deliver major emission cuts. Next one, thank you. Since cities are the primary contributors to climate change, urban planning should be used to solve this problem. An advantage of urban planning is the universality of professions and the tools available to it. Tools such as plan making, stakeholder engagement, development management, and design standards are available and used by urban planning regimes worldwide. These are important for developing and delivering urban adaptation across a variety of scales. Urban planning is a whole consisting of social, legal, economic, and design policies, and is one of the most important tools that can produce solutions to climate change. This research focuses on the spatial design aspect of urban planning as it relates to climate change adaptation. Mapping the urban heat island formation helps in generating solution-oriented planning approaches. Local climate zones that is developed by Stewart and Oak to analyze and classify urban heat islands has become an international standard. The next one. Thank you. Local climate zones refer to a classification system that exists out of 70 classes, 10 of which can be described as build types and 7 as land cover types. The system is originally designed to provide a framework for urban heat island studies, allowing the standardized exchange of urban temperature observations for urban heat island researchers, but it has derivative uses for city planners, landscape ecologists, and global climate change investigators. LCZ-SHEEM serves as a standardized and quantitative method to describe the physical properties of urban morphology and explain their corresponding urban climatic properties. The creation of LCZs, which we can describe as the first step of climate-adapted urban planning, can be done with different methods. The primary methods include in-situ measurements, GIS-based and remote sensing analyzing methods. In-situ measurements is the most basic method used in LCZ classification. In-situ measurements has advantages since its ease of operation, but the time and labor costs are disadvantages of method. The data for GIS-based methods are derived from real urban morphology, so these methods have high accuracies. However, not every city's GIS data are complete or accessible to the public, especially in and regions. Aside from these, there are World Database and Access Portal tools, WDAPT, which do not need any software or data other than Google Earth and the researchers himself or herself using remote sensing and GIS methods through a site that we can access online. The next, thank you. WDAP is an international community-generated urban canopy information and modeling infrastructure to facilitate urban-focused climate, weather, air quality, and energy use modeling application studies. The goals of WDAP are to acquire and make accessible coherent and consistent descriptions and information on form and function of urban morphology related to climate, weather and environment studies on a worldwide basis, and to provide a portal with tools that extract relevant urban parameters and properties for models and for model applications at appropriate scales for various climate, weather, environment, and urban planning purposes. The next slide we can pass. Thank you. WoodUp handles data at different levels. These are designed as L0, L1, and L2. The detailed level of the data increases from L0 to L2. It is possible to access online LCZ data of more than 80 countries prepared at L0 level. Within the scope of this study, L0 level of LCZs were produced. In the preparation of L0 level data, the urban experts are critical to the process as they create the training areas that identify the parts of the city under study that exemplify each LCZ type. This information is used to classify lands and seats into LCZ maps using a random forest classifier implemented in the Saga software. The quality of the L0 data relies on the skill of the experts that create the TAs, and considerable effort has been placed on training experts and on independent assessment of the TA data. And where we can use L0 data, the next slide. Thank you. Data at the L0 level can be used to compare the LCZs of various cities and as a base for advanced climate models. Here are a few examples of practices. In the table, you can see the spatial comparison of the LCZ groups of Chicago, Milan, and Shanghai cities. And the climate scenarios prepared using L0 data as a base for different cities around the world are shown in the figures. And the next one. The LCZ generator is an online platform that maps a city of interest into LCZs, solely expecting a valid training area file and some metadata as input. The LCZ generator web application consists out of 3 major steps. In a first step, personal and training information needs to be submitted via the web application. Upon successful submission, the LCZ classification and quality control is launched in the backend to produce a quality controlled LCZ map, metadata statics, and labels for suspicious polygons. In a third and final step, compressed results are sent to the user via email and simultaneously added to the online submission table. And the next slide, thank you. Training areas are image samples from city of interest that are produced via Google Earth. To prepare TAs, go to the WoodUp website and download the TA template apart from TA template. Then, apart from the layers belonging to all LCZ groups, this template contains metadata such as the researcher's name, the city of study, and the date. If a class has different appearances in your city, make sure you cover all. As a rule, the more and the larger training areas for each LCZ type, the better for classification. A larger number of training pixels provides a better presentation of the variety of spectral characteristics associated with LCZ type. Next one, thank you. WoodUp creates LCZs by combining remote sensing and geographic information systems with 33 satellite images embedded in TAs provided by the researchers. The distribution of these satellite images is shown in the table. Mostly they use Landsat 8, but places they don't have the right image, they can use the other ones too. But these are all embedded. We don't need to find them. Now, when we look at the LCZ data, which can be accessed online through the website, we notice that while there is information on many cities around the world, no study has been conducted on any Turkish city. Thank you. Now the other one, we can go the next slide, thank you. For the İzmir province, Bergama district, which has been determined as the study area, the TAs were created on Google Earth for the LCZ creation process. For LCZ 1 and 4, no samples were made during the TA development process, since the Bergama district lacks high-rise buildings. Then the TA file is saved as KMZ and the submission is completed on the website.
Gökçe 2 dakika.
Okay. After about 20 minutes, the results were received by email. According to fact sheet LCZs prepared by the TAs, we have developed have a 65% accuracy. When we check the list again, now we can see Bergama and our name. Using the open source data we have created, all researchers can create climate change models with our data. And last slide, we can say something about how will we use the LCZs in urban planning. Urban planners can observe how the spatial distribution and heat islands of the city have changed over the years. While the current zoning plans for the city practice either a land use or activity-based strategy, LCZ-based approach allows easy identification of critically stressed areas. For example, areas identified as LCZ1 shows the highest intensity of urban heat islands, given the concentration of anthropogenic heat in limited areas of the city. It helps to make spatial decisions to prevent or control the urban heat island formation. Planning practices can be compared by finding cities with similar LCZ structures. Thank you for listening. And you can find my references.
Thank you for your contribution to our Congress. I'm sorry we have overused our time because of some technical problems, so I can't take any questions. And I want to end the session by saying that we are thankful to Professor Dr. Mehmet Çevik for organizing this very informative Congress for us and giving the opportunity to share our studies, our works with each other. And thank you all, the technical support team. And as you hear, we are out of our time. So thank you. We can end the session here. Thank you for participating.
Thank you.